everybody, it's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome to another special episode of this special end of the year / end of the decade segment here on my channel, The Best and the Worst. And this is actually going to be the last of the 4 episodes because it only makes sense. I mean, think about it. We've already talked about film, we talked about music, we talked about television. So now it's time to talk about the rest, all the other things that made up the last 10 years that were. And before I begin, and more importantly, before I introduce my guest, I just want everybody to be wary that when I say the best and the worst, that means that we're going to be talking about a lot of real world things here as well, because we have to. It's not just the worlds of fantasy and imagination that shape the decade. There's everything from politics to sports to just all around popular culture. And it's very important that we actually take a look back and reflect on those things as well, because there's that famous saying that says, we don't know where we're going until we know where we've been. So, of course, remember, when we go through these categories, because some of these are going to be about politics and world issues, these are not the end-all be-all. They are opinions. We have the rights to say and feel about what these things are and how we choose to feel, but there's no reason why, if these are things that you may disagree with, that you have to be going all up in arms. You can put your comments in the box and you can talk to us. We're more than willing to have a conversation about everything and anything here in this community. And one of the few things that I personally want to try and do going into 2020 is fight cancel culture, because I think that it's a mistake. And by doing that, it's about voicing your opinions louder. Whether you want to agree with that or not, that's the way that I feel. So remember, these are only opinions. I'm willing to talk about these things further, and I'm just excited to throw these opinions out there for all of you, because I always appreciate a good conversation. And the person that I've had the pleasure of joining me today is my friend Gloria, and I'm excited because of the fact that she's not from America. She's from the other side of the world. So some of the things that she will be talking about on her end might be things you don't know about. So it's going to be really exciting to make this last episode a global event, if you will. So Gloria, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to have you back.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited too, because I like talking about these types of things. And when I had you on my episode of Versus, where we discussed Scott Pilgrim with our friend Rachel, I just really appreciated the conversation, not only that we had within the actual episode that we posted on my channel, but the conversations that we had before we recorded and after we recorded, because there's just fun to be had with a good discussion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we had like long conversations, like you said, before and after, that were great and that touched on pretty much everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, everybody, today's episode is called The Rest of the Best and the Worst. So we're going to be going into a whole bunch of topics today revolving around a lot of different things. And I'm really excited to begin today, because one of the few things where we're going to start at is something that you don't see many people actually talking about on YouTube. There's a lot of this specific topic throughout, but it's mostly historic clips. And I feel that having discussions about these are just as fun as having discussions about movies or books or anything else under the sun, and that is sports. So I always want to make sure that my guest goes first with all the categories. So tell me, my friend, what do you think was the best sports moment of the last 10 years?
Well, I might be biased because I'm Spanish, but Spain won the World Cup for football. So 10 years ago, actually. So that was really a really cool moment. And I feel like the whole Spain joined in and celebrated that moment that had happened. I think it's the first time that it had ever happened. That was really, really exciting.
And I actually watched that. I actually, for a little bit of time, had a moment from one of the World Cups from the last decade on my list, but it changed. I had the U.S. player Landon Donovan scoring that goal that no one ever thought that he was going to get when the United States was playing. I completely forgot which team they were playing. It might have been Portugal. I'm not sure, but it was definitely one of the moments where the United States, because when the United States plays football, or in my case, soccer, we're always counted
Right.
out. We really are, especially when it comes to the men. The women are fantastic. The women keep winning, and that's a miracle. I love that. But
Yeah,
it's
I
just
see
like,
that.
yeah, but it's just like when the men do something, it just seems to be something all the more special because we just don't see it that often. But that moment was on my list until something happened in the latter half of the decade, and it happened in my country's sport, baseball. And that was
Oh,
when the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. And that was an event that was a milestone, because the last time that the Chicago Cubs baseball team won the World Series was 1906. So it was over 100 years since this team actually won a World Series. And the thing that was so interesting was when we reached the year 2000, as that decade started rolling on, a lot of those baseball teams that many as fans and even in the press referred to as cursed teams started winning World Series. The Boston Red Sox won their first World Series since 1918. The year after that, the Chicago White Sox won their first World Series since 1919. So people were wondering, are the Cubs finally going to do it? And ironically, even though they did win the World Series in 2016, people thought they were going to win in 2015. But ironically, my favorite team, the New York Mets, beat them in the playoffs and went on to the World Series, but unfortunately lost to the Kansas City Royals. So I was a little crushed because I'd never seen the Mets win the World Series, even though I was alive during the time they did win in 1986. Sorry that I'm throwing all these dates out, but if you're not someone who knows about baseball, here's a little history for you. So I was still too young to appreciate that. So
mhm.
to see them in the World Series was great, but knowing that the Cubs had finally won their World Series, because so many people were just waiting for it, it's still one of those events that is still being talked about, because there's just so many people who are fans of that team that are still in that World Series hangover, because I don't think they care if they win another two or three. They just want to get that one victory, and everybody's
Yeah,
happy now. It's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
One moment from sports is that I actually watched my first Super Bowl, well, or American football
Okay.
ever, and it was the year that the Seahawks won the is it the yeah the Super Bowl, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was a little bit. It was interesting. I learned a lot, and I actually liked the sport when I watched it.
You know what? It's a fun sport to watch, and I am someone who has gone to games live. I'm also someone who has been to many a Super Bowl party. It's actually one of the events in America that is practically a holiday. It's a statistical proof that it is the second day on the American calendar where the country consumes the most food.
Oh wow,
Yeah, the first day is actually Thanksgiving.
yeah, I was gonna say that it has to be.
It's Thanksgiving, but yeah, Super Bowl Sunday is one of those excuses that everybody has where you can just eat the greasiest, fattiest, unhealthy food you ever want and just not feel guilty because of the fact that everyone else in the country is most likely doing the exact same thing along with you. And everybody drinks everything from alcoholic to non-alcoholic beverages, everything from burgers to ice cream to nachos, you name it. Every possible guilty pleasure slash comfort food that you can think of is consumed on Super Bowl Sunday here in America. It's fun.
I experienced that, and it was so much fun. I was surrounded by Americans who explained everything, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And like you said, a lot of food and a lot of drinking.
Yeah, if you ever actually were in the United States on the weekend of Super Bowl Sunday, just know the two magic words are chicken wings.
Oh, cool. Good to know.
Everybody eats tons and tons of chicken wings on Super Bowl Sunday, and in so many kinds, whether they're hot and spicy or just regular chicken wings, everybody eats them. It's a staple right now in Super Bowl. It really is.
I will keep that in mind. I definitely want to be there for one.
It's fun. It really is. And even if you're at a big party or in a public place like a bar, or even if you're just with a couple of friends in the comfort of your own home with a big television, that's still, a great party. Everybody has a good time. Even there were some years where my wife and I just watched it together and we still had a good time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just fun.
It was
And also,
good.
yeah, and everybody watches the commercials too. Everybody likes that stuff as well.
Yeah, there seems to be this whole culture around it.
It is. It's definitely something that has turned into a true gathering of friends and family. It is fun. It really is. So that was definitely some of the fun stuff. And don't worry, everybody, we are going to talk about a lot of fun things, but we also have to tackle the serious stuff as well. So the next topic is actually, what do you think was the most important international event of the last 10 years? And that means something that affected not just you or your family or your country, but the world. Something that just made the big headline, that the world just stopped and just looked around and tried to understand and absorb what had just happened.
Well, I have two things that for me have been the things that I think have been the most influential internationally. The first one is the climate change and the awareness that it has gathered in the last few years, and
Mhm.
how every single country has had uh, protests and gatherings and just people talking about it, and just governments talking and changing. And the other one was the Me Too movement, the women's movement. I mean, that has been also just really important, and it has changed many countries and laws in those countries.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That's probably the second one that you mentioned is
Hmm.
the one that I personally didn't expect to really turn into something that was going to be a global event. I mean, yes, it was extremely important here in the United States, and rightfully so. But the fact that when there was that one day where the women of the United States had their march, and it wasn't just in the United States, there were marches in Australia, there were marches in Germany, in the United Kingdom, they were everywhere. And that
Yeah.
just speaks volumes.
Yeah, I went to a few actually, and it was that catalyst moment of one woman, a few women came out in the States talking about their experiences and about everything that had happened. And that kind of just pushed all the women in other countries to speak out, to say what was wrong, and to share their stories. So, yeah, it turned
Yeah.
into an international thing.
And it's funny that you specifically mentioned that because there's a new event happening right now in the United States that is not just affecting women, but also affecting men in regards to sexual assault and harassment. But right now, all of the driving services like Uber and Lyft are all now being called out because there has been a lot of women and men coming to the front saying that they were sexually harassed by their driver. Or
Yeah.
even some of the drivers have come out saying their passengers have assaulted them. Like
Oh, wow.
it's very interesting right now. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, I never trusted the concept of Uber or Lyft. Never in my life. You know, when I was going to take a vacation with my wife to Walt Disney World 2 years ago, I asked my father for a professional car service number, and he was like, "Why don't you just get an Uber?" I was like, "Why? I don't want to get an Uber." There's something about Uber that just irked me. And the funny thing was, a year later, there was a news story about how a girl got into an Uber and she died. She was killed.
Ah, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was like, when that happened, I didn't go to my father and screamed at him. I was like, I just pointed at the TV and I was actually like looking at my wife and I was like, see, I know what I'm talking about. There's some shady stuff going on here. Never trusted those services in my life. So the fact that they're now getting called out is definitely a positive thing as well, because these things, even though this movement has grown and is very much an important thing, the fact that there are still these things happening, it's like, why do you think you're going to get away with these things right now when the Me Too movement is very much a necessity of life right now? You got to be careful and you got to be smart. And it's just funny how people still think they can get away with it. It really is a surprise to me.
Yeah, I've had a couple of not great experiences when it comes to that with taxis. And
Yeah.
again, people that can think they can get away with it and just not anymore, hopefully, thankfully.
Yeah, there's still a lot of work to do. There really is. For me, the most important international event was the death of Osama bin Laden. I mean, that was something as a New Yorker made
Mhm.
me just stop and watch the news because, look, when 9/11 happened, I luckily didn't have any friends or family who perished in the towers during that day. But I regretted being a New Yorker because I never went to visit those buildings. And the fact that I never will get that chance again, it was just like, because, I lived near this city my entire life. And I was
Mhm.
like, those buildings are always going to be there. Boy, how wrong I was. I couldn't believe it when it happened. It was like something out of a horror movie. So
Yeah.
when we found out that the master behind that attack was taken down, it was a mixture of emotions. I was happy, I was sad, I was angry, I was hopeful. It's just because, even though you get the guy who did it, you still cannot get back what you lost. And sometimes
Mhm.
it doesn't always give you that sense of closure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You get a little bit of closure. You get some sense of this chapter is somewhat being closed, but it can never be closed.
And the other thing that was actually kind of funny, yeah, there's even a little humor in this, was exactly how I found out about the death. I still remember this. I was playing World of Warcraft with two of my friends, three of my friends actually. And we, of course, were using, the Ventrilo, the TeamSpeak, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, one of my friends says, guys, can we just stop playing for just a second? And it's like, why? He's like, well, my mom just came in and told me that Osama bin Laden just bought the farm. I was like, we were like, that expression was just so casual but humorous all at the same time. And we were like, what? So then we all turned on our TVs and we were just talking to each other while we were watching former President Obama talk about it. So just like Osama bin Laden bought the farm, that is like the most hilarious way you could hear about a true shakeup in world history?
Yeah, it's a sentence you don't expect for that situation.
So now we're going to get into the most important national event. So that was something that really affects you and your own self of well-being. It's kind of funny because I was thinking about doing the Me Too movement on my side, but I said to myself, that's not national. That's bigger than just the United States. So what do
Yeah.
you think was the most important national event?
For us in Spain, I feel like it's been a little bit, I don't want to say boring, but just very plain. But we have had a few different things that really did stood out. We've had new political parties come out, which is great because, it's really nice to have diversity. And it's something that, it's been kind of different from the past. And especially because in the past, well, Spain had a dictatorship and then it was two main political parties. So to have new ones, it has been really, really nice to say things be shaken up a little bit. And in some other news, like we've had really big fires, and so that has been something that has affected Spain a lot in the past few years, which is
Right.
a sad part. But yeah.
For me, I actually had to change my answer because I realized that even though the idea that I thought was important, I think that right now this new thing that I wrote down was much more important because it has taken the front seat of the discussion ever since like the last 2, 3, 4 years. The way that I'm going to word it is the understanding of the Second Amendment. And that is, of course, the right to bear arms, because one of the few things that unfortunately is happening in my country right now is the war on guns because of all the school shootings and the mass shootings that are basically happening on a daily/weekly basis right now. And it's really getting scary. I mean, just this past weekend, there were 2 shootings at 2 different army bases. One was a guy who just lost his mind and took his own life after he did his work. But the second one was actually classified as an act of terrorism because of the fact that it was a couple of Saudi nationals that were training here in the United States, and they shot up a couple of people in Pensacola, Florida. But there has been so many acts of gun violence. There was the mass shooting in Las Vegas. There was the Tree of Life synagogue shooting. Of course, there was the high school shooting, Stroman Douglas High School in Florida, which was basically the one that caused all the students to start protesting against gun violence. But the problem that's going on right now with this specific battle is the fact that no one's really trying to come up with a good solution. They're pointing out the problem, but they're not giving us the solution. I mean, if those who are making solutions, some of them are basically saying, take the guns away, don't let people carry guns. But sometimes when some of these shooters come out into the forefront and start doing damage, people who are gun owners will actually sometimes stop these shooters and prevent a lot more lives being lost. So it's a really big dilemma right now. I mean, for me personally, I've been saying that one of the things that we need to do, which could definitely help this epidemic and make it a lot less worse, is we have to put a little bit more money into the understanding and treatments of mental health, because one of the few things that we have been seeing a lot when it comes to some of these active shooters is some of them are very mentally unstable, and the fact that we're not putting more efforts into understanding mental health is a very big problem right now in this country. And unfortunately, the worst of things are bringing these ideas to the forefront, and it's good that these ideas are being brought to the forefront, but it shouldn't be the loss of life that triggers that.
Yeah. I see it as a really crazy thing because in this regard, Spain and the States are complete opposites. If
Hmm.
we have no guns, there is no Second Amendment like you guys have, and I think it comes from the beginning of the country, of course. And to me, every time that I see one of those news, I think it's insane that people can have guns. And I think it definitely comes from the culture and from a standpoint of don't touch one. The police have them, don't look at them, that's it. So
Yeah.
it's really insane. And it's so sad to see children having to march and having to say, this cannot happen again.
Yeah, I know. It's unfortunate. And the other thing that a lot of people are saying is if you just put all of these laws on guns, people are still going to try and find ways to get them. I mean, I think one of the scariest things is that people can make guns with 3D printers. That's really, really
Oh,
scary. It
yeah.
really is. And the fact that there are all these retail, because the other thing is, there are people, I know people who are gun
Hmm.
owners. These are people that are licensed, they have been tested, they have had heavy background checks. Some of the gun owners that I know are actually mothers, and they carry them because of, look, the Me Too movement is a big example. Some of these women still don't feel safe, and some of them have gone to the point where they're carrying guns in their purses. So it's unfortunate that when you take a look at how dangerous guns can be, but also even people who don't carry guns can be just as dangerous and do damage to people. It's a very hard crossroads to figure out which path to take from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially because from the outside, it's really simple to say just take them all away. But you've had this culture of having guns and being legal since the very beginning. So
Mhm.
it's a lot more complicated than just saying, okay, away, don't have them anymore, which is something that I've learned in this year. It's something that I used to think, just tell them to get rid of them. And then you think, oh, this comes from the very beginning of the states, how this started.
Mhm. Exactly.
So,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's strange. I'm hoping that we will try and find some kind of a resolution that everybody can at least agree upon to a degree, I hope. But let's get a little bit into some good stuff here. Let's get into some fun stuff, because that was definitely a lot to unpack, everybody. Let's talk about an influential person. Who do you think was the most influential person from the last 10 years?
I think very recently, the great example that we have is Greta Thunberg, the
Okay.
girl activist. I think we've had other people that have influence over the past few years, but no one as hard as she has. And I think it's because she's I think 14 and has this great ideas, and she's communicating them so well, and she's doing such a great job with awareness that I think definitely her.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of people that disagree with what she says, but there's a lot of people that do agree with what she says. Believe me, she is someone who has come up in a bunch of conversations that I've had with many people, and there's really a lot of people that are just stuck in the middle when it comes to her and just the whole concept of climate change and the environment in general. I mean, I am someone who definitely understands. I'm not one of those people that feels that climate change is a myth. I very much know that this is real and it's happening, but my problem with this is the fact that some of these solutions that people are trying to bring to the table are way too extreme, and to me, I feel some of them are very unnatural. I
Hmm.
mean, the fact that we had a specific politician who provided what was known this year as the Green New Deal, and one of the things that she said in this bill was, yeah, we're not going to have any planes anymore because they're too environmentally unsafe. We should force veganism on the United States and the world because if you eat meat, that's bad for the environment. I mean, I feel that when it gets to the point where you are being forced to live a certain lifestyle, that's not freedom. That is
Hmm.
dictatorship. That's fascism, to me at
Yeah.
least. I am someone who feels that we have some interesting solutions. I believe that the recycling program is very good, but there are still a lot of districts in my state, New York, that basically says, yes, we have recycling, but you have to recycle this, this, and this, and you can't recycle this, this, and that. You see, I feel that any possible material that is recyclable should be recyclable, because where
Mhm.
I live right now, we are allowed to recycle everything that has the symbol on it. The only things that we're not allowed to recycle are batteries, toys, and old clothing, and food scraps. We're allowed to recycle any metal, plastic, paper, good, junk mail we're allowed to recycle. I think that that's wonderful. We're allowed to put everything that is allowed to be recycled into the blue bin and have the recycling company take it away. And my other attitude is, Yes, I believe that we should at some point in time try to break free from the heavy use of fossil fuels. I do believe that we need to try and find untapped energy sources, but the problem is you can't go to plan B until you are absolutely certain that it's fail safe. So until you know that that new method is working, you
Hmm.
unfortunately have to stick with plan A, and you got to gradually move towards plan B. That was a problem that we had before, dare I say it, before President Trump got elected, because President Obama was very much preaching new energy sources, but he basically put a whole bunch of people in the fossil fuel industry out of work because he
Hmm.
basically said, this is bad, we're not using it anymore. I'm like, yes, it is bad, but we can't stop using it until the new method is fail-safe. We have to make sure the new method works. I also believe that when it came to electric cars or hybrids, they were not making them appealing to the average consumer, because you probably know the name Toyota Prius. You know that that's one of the most well-known hybrid slash electric cars, but did you
Hmm.
see what the Prius looked like when it first came out? It was the most ugly thing I ever saw in my life. And people will not buy a car if it doesn't look nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. At the end of the day, people go for the style as well.
exactly. You got to make it appealing to the average motorist and they will buy it, which is what they're really finally starting to do now. So I'm
Hmm.
glad it took a little while, but that's the way to do it. You got to gradually get the people into it. It's also one of the main reasons why I see a lot of Teslas on the road now. That's an electric car or a hybrid car, and it's affordable now and people seem to like it. Well, I own one at this point in time. I'm not sure, but it's catching on. So my most influential person, it's a total opposite from what you presented. I think the most influential person was Brian Mariotti. Now, if you don't know who he is, do you know?
No,
Do you
no,
want
I
do
don't.
you want to know who he is?
Yeah, yeah.
He's the CEO of Funko. He is the man who brought the Funko Pop craze to the world.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, no, he's done really good.
One of the few things that I have to talk about on this segment is the last 9 years, the company that he gave us, Funko, even though it's not his company originally it was created by a man named Mike Becker. And he gave up the reins in the mid 2000s and he gave it to Brian Mariotti because Brian Mariotti became a good friend of his. They were golfing buddies, but he had such a passion for popular culture as Mike did. So he couldn't have put them in better hands. And but at that time, Funko just made bobbleheads. And he said, we got to do something different here. Like, how can we truly make this a great company? So, what Funko really does at the end of the day is they purchase licensing rights. That's all they do. So when they get those rights, then they can merchandise these rights in every
Right.
shape and form. That's why they have Marvel and DC Comics, they have Star Wars, they have Warner Brothers Looney Tunes, they have Disney characters, all of these things
Everything.
that you can possibly imagine, because their efforts are to go out there and get those rights for these properties and say, we will make merchandise. You will get a cut of it, but we will make merchandise out of your product. And these 3 and 3/4 inch vinyl figures have been a revelation for
Yeah.
collectors. And I'm a proud collector. I got into them. I first discovered them in 2012 because they had just come out in 2011. And that was another interesting thing. When the Funko Pops were officially created, their market also expanded because the person who was buying their bobbleheads was mostly guys. When they
Hmm.
created Funko Pops, they started to tap into the female and children's market because they see these kids. Because let's be honest here, when it comes to men and women, women will gravitate more often than guys to something that is just cute. The cute
Yeah,
factor is everything. I mean,
yeah,
look at how popular and iconic Hello Kitty is. You know, when you want
yeah.
to talk about the science of cute, Hello
Hmm.
Kitty is king, you know?
Yeah, it
So,
dominated the market for years.
and it still does. It's still very popular. Even Funko has the rights to the Sanrio Corporation, so they make Hello Kitty merchandise. But the Funko Pops were just the beginning in this past decade, because now they have also done a whole bunch of deals with a whole bunch of other companies. I mean, this year, Funko now has a contract with Ulta Beauty. Now they're making a makeup line.
What?
Yes.
It's the last thing I was expecting, but yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, they're also making tons of merchandise. I mean, look, I'm wearing a t-shirt of theirs right now. So they got
Yeah, that's
merchandise like,
really great.
yeah, they have clothing, they have backpacks and purses, and they're really trying to cater to people old and new, because not only are they tapping into older pop culture phenomenons, they're also trying to get new things like Steven Universe and all of these new things that people love. So they really are a force to be reckoned with. And it's amazing how many times I have seen Brian Mariotti
Mhm.
on the business news networks. Like, he's literally on there at least once a month talking about what his company is doing, because they're continuing to grow. And when it comes to something that people would refer to as a fad, you know, for me, a fad is something that sticks around maybe for 2, maybe even 3 years if they're lucky. But the Funko Pop craze has been around for almost 10 years.
It's still going strong.
Very much. I mean, everybody is so excited for the next year, because they've been pumping out a whole bunch of new lines that are coming out next year, and so many people are excited. I mean, just on Friday, they went crazy and started promoting all the new pop lines that are going to be revolving around Adam Sandler. They are making Big Daddy Pops, Waterboy Pops, Billy Madison Pops, Happy Gilmore Pops. They're going all out right now with Adam Sandler. So I think that's really cool.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, and they have known how to adapt to the market and how to just sell almost everything, which is really impressive for a company.
Yeah, and I mean, now they even have 2 big retail stores. They just expanded and made a brand new brick and mortar store in Hollywood, California. Their first one is in Everett, Washington. That's Washington State, not Washington, D.C. But
Okay.
there's rumors right now that they want to expand even further. And the thing that's making me really excited is they're seriously considering building a store in New York City. If they build a store in New York City, first of all, I'm broke, because I'm going to be probably buying something there. If I see something really cool every single day, I'm there, because wouldn't be surprised if the store opens up like relatively close to my office. So I'll be there every day.
Just
but
move there. Just move to the store.
but what I really appreciate about Brian Mariotti is the fact that even though he has grown this company into a phenomenon, I see these interviews and he's just still so grounded, but he's also still so passionate about his fandoms. That's why this company has the staying power, because he's really trying to get the attention of the fans. He said this when the Funko Pop models were taking off, like in 2013, 2014, and he basically said by 2025 there will be a Funko Pop in every household across the world.
Wow. Yeah, I think he'll get that.
I think so, because people who just don't even think about collecting them, like myself at one point in time, the
Hmm.
minute that one pop comes out that just connects with you, because
Hmm.
the first one I ever bought was Marty McFly. He's from Back to the
Oh.
Future. It's my favorite movie of all time. When they made Back to the Future pops, I was like, there we go. I'm done. I'm officially in.
And from then on, it just snowballed, and yeah,
I mean, you know what? I haven't even asked you. Do you have one yet?
I have not. I've seen a couple that I want, and I have been just not sure if I wanted to buy them. But there's the ones, the set of the tricksters from Nightmare Before Christmas. The
Mm.
three little. I've seen those and I've been resisting so much. But yeah, I'll think I'll end up buying them.
Well, I have to let you know, if you see them and you like them, just know
Mhm.
that when something doesn't sell, they take them off the shelves immediately. But the
Cool.
Nightmare Before Christmas line sells. I want to let you know that. They're really making so many, there's a beautiful, they started making what's called movie moments, where they basically
Mhm.
snapshot a moment, and one of the movie moments was from the Nightmare Before Christmas. It was Jack and Sally on the top of the hill, and
Yeah.
it's absolutely beautiful. There were even points in time where I even wanted to get them. Yeah, so there's even a Funko Pop which is called a deluxe because it's bigger. It's Lock, Shock, and Barrel in the bathtub.
Oh wow.
I'll show it to you at the end of this.
Oh.
I'll send you a link.
Oh yes. Oh my wallet.
You know what? Let me also give you another piece of advice. One of the best things
Yeah.
about them is they're really not that expensive. And one of the
Okay.
other things is they make excellent gifts.
Oh.
Yeah, I got my
Yeah.
I got my father one.
Really? Of
Yeah.
what?
Oh, I got my dad Roger Moore as James Bond. He's a huge James Bond fan. I just had to get that for him. I wish that I could get one for my mother, but it is so hard because she's just not someone who's into these kinds of things, you know?
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get into another thing. I'm really appreciating the conversations that we're having here. So the next topic I think is one that I'm sure you're excited for. My good friend, what do you think was the best book or book series of the last 10 years?
Well, there's two ways of answering this because there's books that have been really influential for everyone and then books for readers.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's books that just have exploded everywhere. Like, for example, Gone Girl,
Of
that
course.
exploded. It was an incredible book. People who didn't read thrillers like me read it and loved it. And it was incredibly big. For me personally, it was The Martian.
Oh, that's a good choice. That, you see, I
I
didn't read the
love the
book.
book.
I didn't read the book, but I
Oh,
love the movie.
yes, so good. It is so good.
Yeah, and I'm not even a fan of Ridley Scott as a director, but my wife and I went to see the movie because she read the book and she loves the book.
Yeah,
But
it's such a good
we
book.
just had such a fun time with that movie. Matt Damon wowed me. He was fantastic. And we got the extended edition of the movie in our collection, and we love it.
Oh,
We love it. And I could totally agree with you in regards to that. I mean, for me personally, I'll tell you the truth. The one book that was on my list until yesterday that I thought was the best of the decade was The Help by Catherine Stockett. That's a great book.
yeah.
And it's a great movie as well. I love that movie. But I feel it's more of one of the more important books of the decade.
Mhm.
But I had to change that because when it comes to the best book, I wanted to really give my favorite read of the last
Right.
10 years. And it's a book series. It just finished this year. It's the Renegade Saga. I loved it so
Really?
much. Oh my goodness. You see, Marissa Meyer, she was probably the big author of the decade because she came out with the Lunar Chronicles earlier in this decade. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, the Lunar Chronicles are a great creative read, but the Renegades showed me that Marissa Meyer has the ability to become one of the greatest young adult authors ever. Her
Mhm.
writing improved tremendously with the Renegade Saga. And as someone who is a comic book reader and loves superheroes, this was the time, first of all, to bring us a story like this because the MCU and the DCEU were some of the most money-making movies of the last 10 years. But the Renegade Saga just took the concept of the superhero and gave me something really fresh and new. Very
Mhm.
similarly to what the Amazon Prime series The Boys did earlier this summer. it's just nice to see a concept that is so familiar but taken in a new direction. And I always appreciate stories where the superheroes are given a true sense of humanity. I
Mhm.
just read a DC comic book miniseries a few weeks ago called Identity Crisis, and it features all the big names of the DC world: Superman, Batman, The Flash, you name it. But here we saw these heroes getting nervous and worrying about their safety because these were people under those masks. Some of them were married, some of them had kids, some of them were in relationships, and they were all nervous about putting those masks on and going out and fighting for justice. And that's why they always say, even though it's so cliche now, you know, I have to keep my identity secret or the people that I care about get hurt. Well, this story talks about what happens when those people that these heroes care about actually get hurt and
Mhm.
get involved at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's deep. And I feel that the trilogy of the Renegades harps on that a great deal.
Mhm. I haven't read it, and I have seen it around. I tried to read the beginning of the Lunar Chronicles a few years ago. Could not get into them, but
Mhm.
I will definitely give Renegades a try. It sounds actually
I will
good.
definitely tell you that they're two completely different stories. So
Mhm.
when I read the Renegades saga, I felt nothing from the Lunar Chronicles in that book series. It was something new from an author that was familiar, and there were some people that were not too thrilled with how the story ended, but I liked it. I thought it was good. And I was also
Okay.
very impressed with how she didn't hold back. Like, she wrote the violence, because there's violence in this story too, very well. And she went very far with it. I was very impressed. She came a great deal from the Lunar Chronicles, and I feel that thanks to the Renegades, the sky is the limit for her future. Let's just say I'm really excited for what she gives us next.
Yeah, I'll definitely add it to my reading list. Actually, for me, this past 10 years is when I got into reading.
Yeah,
So everything I'd read, because for me, this past 10 years have been my formative years from 18 to 28. So it has been when I got into reading, when I discovered my favorite books, the ones that I've reread constantly, and two that have been published before, but have been the ones that got me into this mess that is behind me of the bookshelf. Um, Good Omens, that is now a TV show, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Those two, this past 10 years, I mean, my reading would not have started without those.
yeah, and I read Good Omens over the summer, and I did see the Amazon Prime show, and
Absolutely.
I personally feel that the show was better just because of the fact that my issue is when it comes to British comedy or British style of writing, there's so much more that needs to actually be seen rather than read in order for it to make a little bit more sense. That's just
Mhm.
me. But
If
yeah,
you
I
haven't
loved it.
experienced the culture.
Yeah,
If
I
you,
love British humor. I mean, you're talking to someone who loves Monty Python. So, but that's also because of the fact that it's visual. When it's visual, I get it more. It's just funnier when you
Mhm.
see it, you know?
Yeah.
So, what do you think was the best video game of the last decade? Now, I have to apologize. I didn't even know if you played video games, but
I
I
do,
also,
yeah.
well, that's one of the other things that people need to understand. Video game players have no gender. There are many men and women and everyone in between that plays video games. Even though there's a lot of video games that I know that I have not played, I have still tried to keep myself in the loop by watching playthroughs just so I could see how the game is actually played. So, what do you think was the best video game in the last 10 years?
Well, I'm a very mild gamer. So, the best, I think it has been the rise of the games in phones. So, we've had Pokemon Go, and we've had, what was the other one? Angry Birds. Like, those two have dominated the phone game for such a long time.
Yeah.
And recently, Mario Kart.
Well, you see, Mario
Yeah.
Kart, that's my style. That's old school.
That
I
is
mean,
so good.
I still remember when I was a kid when the first Mario Kart came out on Super Nintendo in the mid
Mhm.
'90s, and that was a revelation. I actually have a Nintendo DS, and I have Mario Kart 7. I also do have a Wii, but my wife and I have not picked up the Mario Kart for Wii. We really do think that we will at some point in time. Yeah, I completely am okay with the fact that I didn't get any of the new games consoles, because like there's so many different kinds of gamers. There's casual gamers, and then there's those hardcore gamers, and when you take a look at the differences between the two of them, it also shows you what kind of consoles they buy. The serious
Yeah,
gamers, they're the ones that buy the Xbox and the PlayStation, but the casual gamers, they get the Nintendo stuff because that's like
yeah.
something familiar, that's got all the great characters and whatnot. And the Switch blew up. Like, it's apparently a
Mhm.
fantastic game console. And
Yeah, I
even
really want to
though,
get that.
yeah, even though I don't have the Switch, the best video game actually is on the Switch, and I think that it is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, for what I've been told, it's the best one, and
Yeah,
that's the reason we actually want to get the Switch.
yeah, because it's like I still remember when I was a senior in high school. That was the year that as far as I'm concerned, the greatest Zelda game of all time was released, and that was The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I mean, that game was revolutionary. It had an amazing story, and it was because of that game that Zelda became more than just a video game. That was when the lore was starting to be developed and the timelines and the books were starting to come out, because we finally got a story that wasn't just words on a screen. We actually
Yeah.
saw the story unfolding, which
Mhm.
I absolutely loved, and the world building and the character development. And Breath of the Wild, from what I have seen, is just absolutely gorgeous. And the
Yeah.
story that's in there too is incredible. And the fact that they're able to make this gigantic world in this console, and the fact that it's free range, you can play it however you want.
Mhm.
There's endless possibilities, and that's what makes a great game. And the fact that they're already working on the second one is insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it has really changed video games, Zelda. It's something that has influenced so many people and so many other games as well. Because you can see it, the more indie games than the ones that are coming out slowly, even for other platforms, like for computers or for phones, you can see so many of them being influenced by Zelda.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also have to give you props for Pokemon Go. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
first time I ever actually got into Pokemon. Like, I always knew that Pokemon were out there, but I was never really into it because I always felt that it was past my time. But I have
Mhm.
the app, I play the game, I think it's fun.
Yeah, I have a friend who's obsessed. Until this day, she plays. But the thing is, for us, we grew up in the 90s. So we were children. Pokemon was a thing here in Spain, and we were all obsessed. And we knew all of them. So when this comes out, now that we're in our 20s, it's one of those I want to play, I want to continue that part of my childhood now in my phone.
So I'm probably almost certain that you were one of the many that went to see Detective Pikachu.
No, I wasn't.
Really? You missed a good one.
Really?
That was a really cute movie.
Really?
We had fun. My wife and I loved it.
Oh, I didn't go watch it because I thought, okay, this might be not something that's gonna ruin it, maybe.
No, because
But
actually Detective Pikachu is actually a video game and my wife actually plays it. So
oh,
they
I didn't
really,
know that.
yeah, so they captured more of that video game, but there's a lot of nostalgia factor with the Pokemon franchise in it, which is really great. But everybody loved the fact that Ryan Reynolds was voicing Pikachu. They just thought that was one of the funniest things ever. And it worked. He sold it. And I think
Yeah,
what was really great about that movie was the fact that people just loved seeing these CGI Pokemon. Like, they loved the fact that Pikachu looked so fluffy. Like, they literally wanted like to touch him because he was just so cute and fuzzy, and they loved that about him.
I will add it to the list. I didn't
I would say
really consider it.
I think you'd really be surprised. I thought it was really, really cute.
I'm gonna add it to the list. I had
Okay.
another game that I thought was really big and that it changed a lot of things with League of Legends,
Oh
with the
yeah,
whole
that's a big
tournament
one. That's a very big one.
and people winning money from games and
Yeah.
all of those things. It really has exploded.
Well, apparently they're trying to make video game competitions an Olympic event. I find that a little bit weird.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know that's weird.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? Skateboarding, I think, is about to be in the next Summer Games, so anything's possible, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
so
skateboarding is, yeah.
yeah, so let's take a look at something that is also very much internet based, and that is the webtoon. There's been a lot of independent animators that have been able to give us great content, especially considering the fact that the whole internet craze for me when it came to even discovering YouTube, it all started with a website called newgrounds.com, which is where all of this independent animation was. And they're still very active today. Some of the greatest animated shows that I watch came from that specific website. So it's been just as popular as the average cartoon that you would see on TV. So what do you think was the best webtoon on the computers these past 10 years?
Actually, it's not something that I found out that was a thing. It was something that I found out later on when I started discovering new content from things
Mhm.
that I already watched. And when I started seeing that a lot of people were doing just fun animations of other TV shows. So, but something that I did want to say is that the webtoons have really heightened with Instagram lately because you do
That's
see
true.
little mini series, and that is something that I have gotten like really into the past year. There's
Okay.
this really cute one. There's the Land of Fogo, I think it's called,
Okay.
and yeah, but it's something that it's a new discovery for me, something very recent.
Okay, well, mine is something that has been around for about 15 years now, and
Wow.
it's the animation studio of Ill Will Press. But most people would be a little bit more familiar with the character Foamy the Squirrel, who is this little cartoon squirrel who is the dirtiest, most vile thing on television. But he talks about real world issues. I think
Oh,
that the best thing that ever came out of him was the video that was called Triggers and Safe Spaces, where he takes a massive hit on those types of people. And it's not that he's trying to be hurtful, rather he's trying to prove a point. He's tackled everything from the obesity crisis to cancel culture. They just made a whole episode about kappa, and I thought it was
wow.
hilarious.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, what's the name?
Okay, just if you go into YouTube and you just
Yeah.
type Foamy the Squirrel, you'll find
Okay.
it immediately. I'll send you a couple of things after we go off the air, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them, okay?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
please.
so let's talk about something else. Let's talk about inventions. One of the few things that a decade can give us is something truly innovational and something that just changes the way that we go throughout our daily lives for the better, or possibly even the worst. Who knows? For all we know, the best invention could be putting jelly in a squeeze bottle. I still remember when that first happened, or just putting peanut butter and jelly in the same jar. It's a revolution to people. But there are more important things like when seatbelts are invented or when the internet is officially invented. So what do you think was the most important or best invention from the last 10 years?
I think it's one very subtle that a lot of people don't think about, but it's apps. I
Mm,
think it has been incredible. There's an app for everything. You can play games, you can talk to people, you can just send messages, send gifts. There's everything. There's an app for absolutely everything, and I think, yeah, I think it's the greatest one. How
well,
about you?
I'm actually sort of in the exact same ballpark with you. I think
Yeah.
that the best invention was the smartphone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when the decade approached, when we finally got to 2010, I mean, yes, there were Blackberries, but
Hmm.
the only concept that most people had with the Blackberry was just the ability to get your emails and send texts and whatnot. The
Yeah.
apps play a major role in why the smartphone is what it is. And you're absolutely right, because the smartphone is something that I personally at one point was like saying I never want to own one of these because it's just going to be something that gets me addicted. But I don't necessarily call using a smartphone an addiction. Rather, I feel that it's a more practical tool to have with you. It's just as important as carrying around your wallet or your car keys right now. Because
Hmm.
I love the fact that if I am away and I get an email from my office, or if I'm running, or if I left the office and somebody is reaching out to me, I can immediately respond to that person right away thanks to the Microsoft Outlook app. But I also love the fact that I have the ability to set the alarm on my house through my phone. I like the fact that I have the ability to control the thermostat in my house on my phone. I like the fact that I can buy a movie ticket on my phone. There are certain things that I feel should not be put on the phone because right now what's going on in New York City is they're trying to do away with the way that people are paying for the subway right now, which is called the Metro card, and now they want people to link all of the times that they pay for a train ride with their credit card. I personally feel that's a little unsafe. But
Yeah.
that's just me. I just feel a little unsafe constantly giving my personal information out every time I have to swipe. And also I feel that using your phone for everything, it shouldn't be that way. There has to still be some things that are more practical using rather than just using your phone. Because
Hmm.
what if your phone is broken? What if your phone gets hacked? What if you lose your phone? What if you drop your phone? What you don't know, because if you're that dependent on your phone, you're dead.
Yeah, or just as simple as you ran out of battery and you don't have a portable charger with you. You
Exactly.
you get lost.
I
You can't go to places, you can't pay for things, so there has to be still a separation, I think.
yeah, I
But
mean, I think one of the few things that's happening right now that I think could be very, very dangerous is the whole concept of people not even carrying physical money with them anymore. Like now they're just using pay apps. I think that that's not right because, like I said, like you said, if something happens to your phone, like let's
Mhm.
say that you are on the checkout line at the grocery store and you have all your groceries and all you have is your phone, and what if your account gets hacked and you can't even get into your phone to pay for your groceries? That means you can't eat. You have to
Yeah,
have your
or you're
you
even
have to have
paying,
paper money.
or a card or
Yeah, or a
something.
credit card. Exactly.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
we're on our phones constantly, whether it's listening to music, talking to people, playing games, Instagram, all of those things. They're going to run out of battery, and if you're not one of those people that are always prepared with a battery with a portable charger, you're going to run out of battery at some point. That
Exactly.
day you're not going to be able to get food or do whatever.
Exactly. Okay, so now we're going to get into commercials. And I'm really excited to hear this from you because I don't watch international commercials. I have just the stuff that I
Me neither.
see. But I'm really curious to know what you think was the best commercial of the last 10 years. So I think everybody should listen because this is going to be a game changer for everybody. Because if you don't know about what commercials are like in Spain, everybody, this is going to be a lesson for us all. So I'm excited about this.
So there's this. I really think it's the best of the best, and we've had good commercials. Like you said, I don't watch international commercials either, and I barely watch TV here at ATV with commercials. But there has been a series from a beer company that is called
Okay.
Mixta,
Okay.
and so they did this series of a talking duck just a normal duck, and they put a voiceover, really funny voice. And it was one of those, I'm gonna go to YouTube. They put the duck in a box, and people had to click on the YouTube videos. They made more and more videos, more and more commercials, and it ended up this being this huge, huge thing. Everyone knew the duck, everyone talked about the duck. So it was not only great commercials, but a great strategy for selling that beer. So definitely they mixed the beer commercials with the duck.
That's interesting. I could probably find some of those commercials on YouTube if I look.
They are all in there. I looked the other day and they're so funny. If you know Spanish, they are great.
Well, for me, I think a lot of people who know commercials would agree with me on this, but the commercials that I think were the best from the last 10 years was from a insurance company called Geico. And the reason why I liked that is because they were very funny, but also in a span of 10 years, they changed the ad campaign every couple of years. But those images were so in popular culture that they stuck. I mean, the mascot for Geico, which is the Geico Gecko, everybody loves him. Everybody knows him here in the United States. There was a campaign that they once had cavemen, and they were like, Geico, so easy a caveman can do it. People still say that. But probably the one commercial from one of their campaigns was great was when they had how happy is someone that saves their money on car insurance? And then they say, I'd say it's such and such. One of the commercials that they made was happier than a camel on Wednesday. Because what is Wednesday in the United States? The nickname is Hump Day. So they had a camel walking through an office, annoying all of his coworkers, going, hey, guess what day it is?
No.
It is what you have to find that. And you also have to find these other ones that they did where they had like a guy saying, does Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Then they go, does this specifically happen? So like this last year, they actually did a special series of Geico commercials from the last 10 years. They were basically airing the best of the best. And the one with the camel was one of them. So I was just so happy to see it again, you know?
Yeah, that sounds really good. And
I'm just saying it this way. When we're officially done, I'm gonna watch you react to one of these videos. I have to see your attitude. Okay? Okay, so let's go into the biggest fad of the last 10 years. The thing that we referred to a little bit earlier, something that is there, really has an impact for a while, but then, you know, it fades away and then it goes into the new craze. What do you think it was for yourself?
Well, I think, I don't know. I'm not really sure because there's been a few things that the whole influence and influencer thing. I think in a way it was the big craze of we all love them, but it went away fast. Some of them, okay, I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself, but because the people that weren't disclosing everything. So I think the ones that were not being completely honest. So certain things from influence culture.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, so would that be stuff like you see like on Vine or something like that? Okay, yeah. Okay, that's what I was thinking. All right, that's cool.
I was thinking that Snapchat as well. It's one of those things that was really big for a few years, and then not that many people use it anymore, I think.
I don't really know. I never use it, to be honest with you. I think that the biggest fad was the show Glee. You know, for a while, it was the biggest thing. Like, everybody sang the songs. Everybody was right. Nobody talks about it anymore. It's gone.
Yeah, that's true. I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, there you go. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Perfect proof that my answer was good.
Yep, no, definitely.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember when the most popular song was Journey's Don't Stop Believin', sung by the cast of Glee.
Yeah. Oh, that song.
Okay, let's start getting back into a little bit of controversy here. Who do you think was the worst person of the last 10 years?
Okay, so I think it's everyone that was brought up with the Me Too movement. Can I swear?
Absolutely. There's no filter here.
Assholes, all of them. Horrible, terrible people that should not be on earth. There it is.
So then would it be proper for me to basically, if we had to name a name, would it be okay if we just said Harvey Weinstein or Roger
Oh yeah,
Ailes?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes,
there you go. Yeah.
absolutely. All of them.
And that's
Hmm.
why I'm really excited to see the movie Bombshell when it comes out, because it's going to be all about how the women of Fox News took down Roger Ailes. I think that's going to be a really good movie to watch. I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna push a few buttons right now. I think the worst
Okay.
person of the last 10 years was Hillary Clinton.
Really?
Yeah, and this is not even
Wow.
about her running for president. I
Mhm.
never, ever liked her. First of all, I lost so much respect for her when she stuck by her husband after what he was caught for. I think that
Hmm.
that was a really weird thing for a strong woman like her. It really
Mhm.
was. But I think that when she became my state's senator, number one, she didn't do anything for us. That's number one. When she became the Secretary of State, she had that whole Benghazi incident, which is still
Mhm.
something that people are bringing up. But when she ran for president, it was the basket of deplorables remark that she made on the campaign trail that just offended me, because basically
Mhm.
she was saying that if you are a straight white man who is conservative and plans to vote Republican, you are a bad person. I
Wow.
feel that that was wrong. I
Yeah.
really do, because number one, I didn't vote for Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, I
Mhm.
didn't vote for either of them because I didn't trust them as hard as I could throw them. But the fact that I am known to be a good person, yes, I do admit that I do have issues with my anger sometimes, and sometimes I will lash out and say mean things to
Mhm.
people. But I know right from wrong. I know that I am a decent human being in this world. So, because of the fact that I fit a certain skin color, gender, I am the devil.
Mhm.
That's basically what she was saying.
Wow. We didn't really get that many things from that campaign. Like we just got these little snippets. So there were not really any of these comments. Mainly, I think because they were just focusing on Trump.
Yeah, I think that's really what it was. And the problem
Yeah.
is, and that's one of the few things that I didn't expect to say this, but this is one of the main problems that the Democratic Party is having right now. The fact that they're making their campaign all about Trump is only fueling the ability for Trump to win the next election. I mean, the
Yeah.
whole thing with the impeachment is a whole other can of worms, but it's I know a lot of people who are proud Democrats, and some of
Mhm.
them even say that what the Democratic Party is doing right now with the impeachment is a big mistake for them.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, they're saying because it's just going to make the conservatives and the people who were not planning to vote for Democrats even stronger. I mean, I don't really know what's going to happen right now. I really don't. But I've watched some of these things, and it's a dumpster fire. It's sometimes really just you take a look at the way these people are talking to each other, and it's literally like kids in a playground. But then again, Donald Trump is not the brightest crayon in the box here. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Yeah, I think when it comes to politics right now in this state, at least what we can see from the outside is you have to just go to his level now. They're all talking like he talks, same intellectual level, same level of vocabulary and what they're saying. So
Yeah,
I think that's what happened.
yeah, and I think it's really sad because, especially when you take a look at news stories that break like last Friday, where we basically found out that we have in this country the lowest unemployment rate in the last
Oh,
50 years, and the fact that the economy, in terms of people who are invested in the stock market, are making an absolute killing because the economy is the strongest that we have seen. The fact that even Trump is not focusing on that. Rather, he's focusing on the impeachment and saying it's a witch hunt, it's false. I'm like, this is not helping him either. It's like you said, everybody's now officially stooped to his level, and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, it feels like everyone's saying, "Oh, reality TV is what wins." Okay, we're all gonna go into that. We're all gonna act like that. We're all gonna say what he's been saying.
Yeah.
Different words, same meaning.
And I think it's even weirder because after Hillary Clinton lost the election, the fact that she went on that book tour and she was basically blaming misogyny for the reason why she lost. No, I'm sorry. The reason why you lost is because you didn't connect with the people. That's the reason why you lost the election. If you would have given us something that we could chew on, making us feel that you were going to give us something that was not the status quo, because that was the reason why people gravitated toward Trump. He was providing some things that most didn't agree with, but he was trying to promote changes. And the fact that some of these changes have actually happened, you know, a politician keeping their promises, whether you like them or not, keeping promises nonetheless is something that a politician hasn't done for decades.
Yeah, anywhere.
Anywhere, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's talk about the most embarrassing moment of the last 10 years. And that opens up the floodgates for every which way. It could be everything from something serious in politics or something as stupid like in New York Jets football, the butt fumble. You don't even know that. I won't even get into details with that. I saw that. I was at that game and I watched it, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happened.
So I had a serious answer.
Okay.
And then something came to mind. The serious answer was Trump. And as we see it from outside, from Europe, we're like, oh, really? That's happening? But then something came to my mind, and it's the people that believe that in 2012, the world was going to end.
Yeah, I have to throw a fun fact there. Can I please?
Oh,
Um,
were you with them?
I was not one of them who believed that it was going to end, but I was about to go on my first date with my wife. And I actually said to her, can we go out after December 21st, just in case the world does come to an end? I will not be in heaven screaming at God saying, why can't I have nice things? So she agreed. We went out 3 days later.
Well, at least the world didn't end.
Nope. I also still think it's crazy that there are some people that think that we have 12 years left to live now.
Oh, there's people like that now again?
Yeah, unfortunately, most of them are people that are toting a lot about climate change. Let me just say that Greta Thunberg is not one of them, but there are people that have been saying that, like, in the next 12 years, if we don't fix things, we'll be dead. I think that that's a little outrageous.
Yeah, there's always crazies around. But I did personally know someone who was 100%, like, they were for sure known, like, the world was gonna end. She went to a end of the world party.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. It was one of those people that I would just like, please never speak to me, or just do, because I'm gonna laugh. But yeah, all those people that believed that the world was gonna end, but they were serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to get a little bit more into politics, and I'm actually kind of glad that it's still here because now it's actually taking a different shape right now. I think that the most embarrassing moment was the United States making the Iran nuclear deal, because clearly the people that are in government and in power in Iran are no good, and right now it is good to actually see the people of Iran rising up and trying to put an end to this regime. I'm very happy to see that. And the fact that the United States is backing that, I mean, look, making sure that people, whether they're good or bad, that they're being watched over in regards to their nuclear weapons is important. But maybe it's because of the fact that I am of the Jewish faith, and I have seen the conflict between the Jewish faith and Islam when it comes to what's happening in Israel. And maybe that's the reason why I feel that when something like this happens, there's just still a very big lack of trust, because one of the few things is, denounce the terrorist organizations, and yes, I'll be willing to sit down with you, but the fact that they're not doing that, in the fact that they're still funding groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and Al-Qaeda, because here's one of the few things that I want to make perfectly clear. I don't have anything against the Muslim people as a whole. I know for a solid fact that there are more good than bad, but these types of people that are killing in cold blood other Muslims, Jewish people, Christians, they're doing bad things. People like these are what's taking over the perception of someone who follows the Muslim faith. And I think that that's bad. And there needs to be more voices that stand up and say, this is not who we are. This is not Islam. This is not what we practice. And the voice that is a much more numerous voice is not the loudest voice right now. But the fact that that's happening right now in Iran is very powerful, very powerful. I don't know if you agree or disagree with me on everything I just said, but that is how I feel.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's something really weird what's going on, honestly. What I see from the outside, seeing the state do those things, it's like, it's not a really good step to take, but yeah.
No, it's not a good step to take when you take a look at who's on the other side. But at the same time, there were a lot of people in this country that didn't want it to happen in the first place, because, there were still so many people that were reeling from 9/11. And it was like, when they did that, they kind of felt like you basically took everything that we fought for the last couple of years and threw it in the garbage. That was the attitude that most people in this country had. But do I want to see peace between these nations? Of course I do. I really do. I would like to see a better world like that. I dare I say it, I really feel that, North Korea, we may end up with a peace treaty with them before we know it. We don't know. But there have been peace treaties that have been made that no one ever thought of in a million years would actually happen, and they have. And we'll see what happens, I guess.
The North Korea thing, I think it's a little bit far-fetched, but
I don't know. Weirder things have happened.
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you think was the biggest joke? Now, the biggest joke is very different from the biggest embarrassing moment, because a joke could basically be anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think I changed my answer to now, honestly, your president. I don't mean to offend.
No offense taken.
But from the way that we see it in Europe, it felt, for a long time, it felt like a joke. It felt like, this is not real. They are messing with us. We're going to be reading about it in a few weeks, saying like, oh, we made a big joke or something like that. But I feel, and it's really sad, because you see how politicians and how people from Europe are not taking serious the states that much anymore, or at least how they're being represented. Yeah, it's really, really sad. So I think that's,
No, I think what's really funny is people who look at me. It's so funny when so many people think that I am someone who supports him, and then I go right up in their faces and say, no, I don't support him. I don't like him as a person. I really don't. I think he's an asshole. I really do. I think that he's a baby. I think that he, unfortunately, he is going to run for re-election, and for some strange reason, I actually have a feeling that he might actually win, merely because of the fact that unless the Democratic Party gives us a candidate that is not a socialist, he will officially win. Because I think what's actually kind of funny was when Senator Elizabeth Warren was in the lead in the polls for the Democrat side, I basically said that if she is the one that wins and she goes into the debates against President Trump, I said that's going to be the first time in a long time you will see a grown woman cry on live television, because he will hit below the belt. He will make her feel like crap. Unfortunately, is that the way that a politician is supposed to speak? No, you're not supposed to, but he's not a politician.
Exactly.
That's the problem. He is a 70-something-year-old man. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I mean, when you take a look at his agenda, I think people would be a lot happier if his name was not attached to the agenda. Economy-wise, people are happy with the way the economy is right now. We all really are. And it's really funny to see that when people talk about Donald Trump, people say that his Twitter feed doesn't get the job done. His policies get the job done. It's like, because he goes on Twitter and does things that he does, you know, it's not putting money in your pocket, but all the things in the economy are putting money in everybody's pockets. And unfortunately, when you take a look at some of the reasons that people hate him the most for, whether it's the way that he acts towards women, the thing that he's doing with building the wall, all of these types of things, it's a sad thing to see the culture of America at war. But at the end of the day, that's not what puts money in people's pockets. That's not what puts people's food on the table. It's not what pays the bills. If the economy is good, that's why people are happy. And 75%, if not more, when it comes to going to the voting booths on election day, it's all going to be mostly based on their pocketbooks. People want to live. People want to keep being happy. People want to support their families. That's what people care about. We got 2 new people on the Democratic side going into the election now, and they are basically bizarro Trumps. They are billionaires with brains in their heads. There's Tom Steyer and there's the former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg. Now, I, for one, remember Michael Bloomberg being the mayor of New York City. And I will say this, he did a great job for the city. He did an amazing job for the New York City people. So much, in fact, that he was one of the few mayors that was voted in for a 3rd term because people didn't like who was going up against him. So they voted him in again, and he did a good job. Could he make a good president? I think that he would make a good president. The only thing that I'm nervous about is the fact that, like me, he is Jewish. And if something goes sour, anti-Semitism goes skyrocketing through the frickin' roof on all sides. That's just my own personal opinion because, you know, when you take a look at the hate crimes that have sparked in this country, and one of the few things that people need to know that it's not just white supremacists that are doing that, it's people on the other side that are making really bad anti-Semitic hate crimes towards Jewish people in this country. It's really sad.
I think something really interesting that you said is that people are going to be looking at their wallets and the money that is coming in, and they're going to be attributing that to the current president when really it's an effort of really just past presidents.
Yes.
Not only one, but many. The economy, like anything else, is a cyclical thing. It comes up, it goes down, it comes up, it comes down. It's something that they also need to realize. This is not just something that he's done in 3 years.
Yes, I want to also make something clear. I'm actually very glad you brought that up because every single time I have this argument with my wife, she's like, no, the economy started getting better under Obama. Yes, that is true. But one of the few things that Obama did not do was it didn't go rapidly well. I mean, one of the few things that I have always been researching is the gross domestic products numbers, the unemployment rates. I mean, yes, things were improving, but they were moving at a snail's pace. I think it's a little bit weirder. It's definitely something to consider that when immediately Donald Trump gets elected into the office, the stock market goes through the roof. The fact that we've had a couple of dips, but we've never actually had anything like a serious recession. It just keeps going further up and up and up, record highs even. It was never like that before. Never. So to a certain degree, he gets credit, but he doesn't get all the credit.
Yeah, that would actually terrify me. See everything go up and up and up.
When is that bubble gonna burst?
Ooh, yeah. I don't want to think about that, but it happens. You can
it
see
does.
every single economy.
It does.
And,
it does. It does, but that's but unfortunately but the other thing is it's happened before so many times, and we've all recovered from it, etc., and all that stuff. But like I said, we'll see what happens. We really will. But I also think that when people are basically praying for a recession just so people will vote Trump out of office, I think that that's a really bad way to go through life.
Yeah, no, that's screwing up a whole country for you not wanting a certain person there.
Yeah, yeah. My attitude in regards to the biggest joke is something completely different. The biggest joke was the
Okay.
Spider-Man musical.
There was a Spider-Man musical? Oh my God.
Yeah, there was a Spider-Man musical that was in Broadway for about, I think, 2 or 3 years. It was called Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. It was co-written by Bono from U2. But basically, I was saying to myself, why is this happening? What is this?
Why did they do that?
I didn't understand it. I never wanted to see something like that. It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And people who did see it really didn't have anything good to say about it. At least I didn't know anybody that had anything good to say about it. Let's just say I think it got more flack than Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
I was gonna mention that. I was gonna mention Harry Potter because that's also one. Not only the Cursed Child, but the Grindel. I don't
The
know the
Crimes of
name.
Grindelwald.
Yeah, a lot of people, me including, just no,
Well,
absolutely not.
it's funny that you mentioned that because in one of the previous episodes of this segment, I talked about that with my friend, and what I tried to say was that the problem is because J.K. Rowling, she was willing to let the Harry Potter cow go out to pasture after she finished the books, but the fans just demanded more. So guess what? You got more, and this is what you have to say about it. It's your fault. It's not hers.
A lot of times we don't know how to end things. And that's the
Exactly.
problem.
And that's a big problem right now. It's happening a lot more often than it used to.
Yeah, and also we can see that problem with all the reboots and all the redoing old things that were good and that were fine, and now we're just making them into jokes, really.
My friend, that's a whole other conversation for another time. I would be glad to do a collaboration with you on that too. I think I should make a whole series about that. That whole
Yeah.
concept and train of thought. It could just go, because the conversation can go on for hours.
Mhm.
What was the big deal? That's the next category. What that means is something happened and everybody was up in arms about it. But
Mhm.
was it really something that you needed to make a big deal out of? Because at the end of the day, everybody forgot it like in about a week.
Yeah. For me, honestly, anything that happens to celebrities' life, I think there's such a big culture of knowing what's going on in their lives. Someone breaks up, someone gets back together with this person, new boyfriend, new girlfriend. They make such a big deal. 2 days later, a week later, no one remembers, no one really cares.
Yeah, it's basically like the whole thing with social media, like that famous line, it's not official until it's on Facebook. For me, it was an event that took place in the United States. It was revolving around a woman who was charged of murdering her daughter. Her name was Casey Anthony,
Oh, wow.
and she was claimed to be not guilty,
Hmm.
and people just went berserk. But at the end of the day, like a week later, nobody was talking about it anymore. And do I think that she was guilty and killed her daughter? Yes, I do. This was
Wow.
sort of like the B version of the O.J. Simpson trial. Like
Hmm.
we all knew that he did it, but he got found not guilty. And a couple of years later down the line, he got caught for theft and then went to prison. So in the end, he went to prison, just not for the reasons that people wanted him to go to prison for. So I made a joke saying, yeah, she's not guilty, but I guess one day Casey Anthony will go to jail because she's caught for tax evasion or something like that. So I have a feeling
Yeah.
that she will go to prison one day because I don't think that she's a good soul. But I don't think but she's going to go to prison for the reason that nobody wanted her to go to prison for. That's what I
Yeah.
say. So now the question that we're going to talk about is who might end up dead next year? Now, I don't want this to get personal. I really want to go into the world of celebrity.
Okay.
One day, once at one point in time, maybe not even for this decade, but I really thought that Lindsay Lohan was going to die.
Yes.
But she's still alive, apparently.
Yeah, she's doing good.
Yeah,
I
but
think.
who do you think?
Honestly, I don't know because there's just so many people, and I I don't know. I really, really don't.
That's fair. I mean, I personally feel that if he actually manages to live another year, it will just be a wonderful thing. But I have a feeling that Kirk Douglas might be dying next year, just because he's that old. He's over 100 years old,
Oh,
and it is,
really?
yeah. Kirk Douglas is very, very much up there. And
Oh,
he,
wow.
yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go into IMDb right now just to get the exact age of this man. I mean, it is great to know that someone like him is still very much alive, but every single
Hmm.
time I see him on television, like I'm saying to myself, oh God, he's still here. Yeah, he is over 100 years old. He was born in 1916, so he is
Wow.
103. One of the most well-known actors of the golden age of Hollywood, and he's still here with us.
Wow. Well, he might surprise you. My
Exactly.
great grandmother lived until she was 111. So
God bless. God bless.
maybe we're friends.
Well, I don't know, but that's the person who I feel may not be with us. I mean, it will be sad to see him go, but, to know that he lived this kind of a life and had this kind of a legacy in regards to movie making, I mean, that's just a wonderful thing to know either way.
Yeah, I think I really didn't know because at the end of the day, the ones that are going to impact us most are the ones that we didn't really see coming.
Yeah,
Because
because we
we've had a
unfortunately,
few of those.
oh yeah, this year we had a lot of people that left way too soon. We did.
Yeah. And so,
As,
yeah, when I was thinking about that, it's like, I'm not sure, but hopefully no one I love.
Yeah, because it's always sad when someone, in regards to things that you like movies or books or music, and this year we lost a lot of famous faces in music that people really loved, and it was just really sad. Even this decade, I was talking about this with Kate from Chapter K, who's
Mhm.
joined me for the music episode of this, but we were talking about the fact that we lost Tom Petty, we lost
Yeah,
Rick Ocasek from the Cars. We lost Aretha Franklin. We lost Michael Jackson. We lost so many famous artists in music in the past couple of years. And these were like
it's
really impactful people.
yeah, I was gonna say that this is people that have influenced so many others.
Hmm.
It's really sad.
So this one could trigger a couple of people, but it's always fun to do this. Like, who should you add to your hit list? Like, who do you just not want to live because that person just makes you so mad?
Um, the
If
guy from
it's
Brexit.
Okay, because I was going to say that if it was Donald Trump, I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't. So you're referring
Okay.
to
Oh yeah, we can add him to. I mean, they're basically the same person, right? But with different accents.
Boris Johnson,
They,
you mean?
yeah, they even look alike. Best friends forever. Just buy them bracelets and just yeah, add them
Yeah.
to the list. Oh God, I cannot stand that guy.
I don't know about you, but the difference between him and Trump is that Trump actually does keep himself. Like Boris Johnson, whenever he's on television, I swear to God, he looks like he had been on a bender the night before.
Yeah. The only thing I'm gonna say is that Boris Johnson does have a background in politics, which I think, okay, you're insane, you're saying crazy things, you're taking the country through a crazy, difficult thing that shouldn't happen, but at least you have a background.
Yeah,
The other
that is
one
true.
doesn't.
That is true. Yeah, I had a feeling that when we were going to talk about this, it was going to be politicians. The person that I
Yeah.
just cannot deal with is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She,
Really?
oh my goodness, I can't stand her. She did so much damage to my state, and she doesn't even realize it. The fact that she has a small portion of Queens,
Hmm.
and I mean, let me just say this. It's very impressive to see a 28-year-old dethrone a seasoned Democratic politician who was basically going to be the next Speaker of the House if Nancy Pelosi decided to give it up. And the fact that she got it was impressive. But the Green New Deal is such a terrible thing. And it was the fact that the Democratic Party didn't even want to vote to put it into law, or at least put it on the table, said a lot about how they feel about her. The fact that she protested the Amazon headquarters from coming to Queens was a huge mistake for New York's economy. This could have given us more jobs. This could have given us the chance to really clean up some of these areas of New York City, allow the status of living to be better. But her attitude was, no, this is going to gentrify the Queens community. This is going to be a bad thing for the minorities. I disagree entirely. These people could have all gotten jobs at Amazon.
Yeah.
All these small businesses that were there, they were going to be able to feed and clothe and take care of all of these new employees that were going to come to Queens. And she said, big business doesn't belong here. She is a self-proclaimed democratic socialist.
Yeah, we haven't gotten much news about her. Like,
You know,
we've seen that she was around, but here she wasn't really mentioned in Spain at all.
You want to know what, and you want to know what's really funny? She's not making the news as much as she used to anymore. And you want to know why? Because she's old news. She has come to the forefront. Everybody, whether they were left, right, Democrat, Republican, they basically all said to her, "You're insane." When
She's one of those trends we talked about earlier of it was 5 minutes, it was the biggest thing ever, and then everyone forgot about it.
Yeah, you want to know what's actually really scary? Her polling numbers are lower than Trump's.
Oh, wow.
The true people who are part of her political party are finally making the statement saying, we don't want socialism. We don't want socialism. That's what people are finally saying. And because of the fact that that's what's happening, she finally realized, well, maybe I should actually keep my mouth shut for a while and actually start doing some work in Washington and actually start seasoning myself and getting a better understanding of how working in the House of Representatives works. And it was actually Whoopi Goldberg on The View that actually stated that. She said, become the politician you want to be because you have a lot of time here. You got many more years left. You're very young. Don't start coming out and saying that you're going to take charge and change the world, because nobody's going to follow you at this point in time. It's maybe it's ageism. I don't know. I mean, look, I am well into my 30s, and there are still many people that I know that don't want to follow me because I'm younger than them, you know? But that's unfortunate. But you want to know something? It's not ageism. It's just humanity. It's human nature. That's the way we are. And that's one of the few things that people need to understand. Even though we are at the peak of civilization, humanity is still flawed heavily. And the only way to really make human beings perfect is to turn us into robots. And even that's not perfect.
Yeah. Because then we have the whole robots are going to take over the world. And
exactly. Yeah. I'm like, didn't you ever see The Matrix? Haven't you been paying attention?
Or any film with robots in the last 10 years as well.
So the next category is called Who Is That Again? And that was basically the hot minute thing, and now it's gone.
Honestly, that politician that you just mentioned, she was one of those people that were really, really important, I'm going to say, and then completely disappeared.
Yeah. Well, she's still there. She is still there, but nobody's talking about her. And I think another one of the most important things that happened in the summer was when where Queens was voting for the new district attorney. And there was practically another one of her running for that position, and she lost. And a lot of other people that have her mindset were running for other public offices, and they lost. So basically, at this point in time, a lot of people are saying the public is now officially speaking, we don't like those kinds of mindsets. We don't want those kinds of mindsets in our capitalist democratic society. Now, don't get me wrong, capitalism is not perfect either. I've always said to people that when you take a look at capitalism and socialism and put them side by side, they both can be perfect systems, but you got to weed out the corruption. That's how you make
Yeah.
them better. And unfortunately, that's humanity. There's always going to be corruption, no matter how you slice it. For me, I'm going to talk about something that I'm pretty sure nobody even knows. Octomom.
Oh, no.
Okay, so there was an event that took place early in the decade. A woman took fertility drugs and gave birth to 8 babies.
Oh, God.
She was known as Octomom. Basically, the press and the entertainment gossip columns had a field day with this woman. They wanted to do everything from marketing campaigns to reality television shows with her. But it turned out that she ended up not being one of the nicest people. So basically, in like less than a month, she became old news.
Oh, wow. Poor woman. I mean, with Ed Cates, I mean, if she's a terrible person, I don't care, but
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even remember the whole story anymore because it was such a long time ago. But that's the point. The category is, who is that again? Nobody remembers her. I had to really dig deep to try and find out the most obscure name in news or popular culture. And there she was. I was like, wow, I remember her, but nobody cares about her anymore.
Yeah, I was going to mention there are certain actors as well that this has happened.
Oh, sure. Give me some
And
names.
I'm going to give you some TV shows. For
Go for it.
example, the shirt that you have from it's Big Bang Theory, right?
Right.
Okay. So this show ended,
Mhm.
and up until the point, the actors were just really important. The TV show was very successful, but have they done something? Like, have you thought about those actors, or have you seen them lately and think, I still love
That's
them?
that's a good question. As a matter of fact, some of them have actually decided to go behind the cameras.
Really? I didn't know
Some of
that.
them are going into screenwriting, some of them are going
Huh?
into production, a lot of them are going into the inner workings of making movies and television. Kaylee
Mhm.
Cuoco, who played Penny, is
Yeah.
actually doing some voice acting right now for DC Animation. She is now the new voice
Oh,
of Harley Quinn in the rated R Harley Quinn animated series, which is about to go live on the streaming service DC Universe. Johnny Galecki, who played Leonard, is actually showing up in some of the episodes of The Conners because before he did the Big Bang Theory, he was on the original Roseanne. So he has been doing some of their writing and also has been showing up. Jim Parsons is now working on the spin-off Young Sheldon, which is very successful. But
is it?
yeah, oh yeah, it's fantastic. I have been watching since day one, and season 3 has been the strongest season yet.
It hasn't caught up here. I think they
I
tried
think
to
it's
do a little
great.
bit of things, but it
I
didn't really
think
cut up.
it's great. It really is a funny show. It's adorable. And the little boy who plays Sheldon, Ian Armitage, is fantastic.
They've taken a little bit of a step back from.
A step back in a certain degree in terms of being
Yeah,
in the spotlight, but a step forward in regards to their film and entertainment careers.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Then it might be just me not paying enough attention to certain people.
Well, you know something? Not
Yeah,
everybody has the ability to watch everything and anything right now, you know?
yeah, and I
Okay.
forget about things. So
Yeah, that's, you know what? No harm, no foul. The last two things that we're going to be talking about is stuff that is going to be going into the next decade. So the first thing is the new craze. It might have already started thanks to the last year or two, but I believe that it's really about how is it going to shape the next 10 years. So what do you think is going to be the next big craze?
I think it has started this year, and I think it's the whole YouTube documentary about either other people or industries. The whole thing Shane Dawson has started.
Hmm.
I think that is going to start a new path for the internet and even just television in general.
Okay, well, I'm sort of in the same wheelhouse here. I think that the new big craze is TikTok.
Ooh, really?
TikTok is like taken over. Like everybody's now doing it. And it was something that I didn't even hear about until like well into 2019. But
Mhm.
everybody is talking about it. Everybody is trying to put their hands in it. I'm not going to do it. It's not my thing, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a big craze that is happening right now.
Yeah. It might be one of those things that then like die down a little bit and people
Well,
forget about it.
yeah, it's a craze right now, but it could be a fad. We don't know. I mean, look, people didn't think that YouTube was going to be what it is, and look at what it is now.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest businesses.
Yeah, and the last thing is, what do you think is going to be the biggest event of 2020? Now, you and I haven't actually had a match yet, but there
Yeah.
might be a good chance that we might actually have a match right now.
Really?
Well, I think that the biggest event of 2020 is going to be the US presidential election.
Yeah.
Yeah, because look at what's been happening for the last 4 years, and look at the conversation that you and
Yeah.
I have had for the last 2 hours.
Yeah.
Clearly, this is something that is on everybody's mind, even if they don't even live in the United States. But the world is watching, and everybody is saying who is going to be in the White House after November 2020 when the elections are officially done. It is something that even some people have been talking about since the minute that Donald Trump took the oath of office. So
Yeah. It's
how could it
definitely a spectacle.
how could it not be the biggest event of the next year?
Yeah. It is definitely one of them. I was also going to say Brexit because that here it is going to affect massively throughout Europe.
Yeah.
And yeah, especially because I see a lot of people from England living here in Spain, like really just retiring here. And you see that this is really shaking things up, and you go anywhere and they're talking about it and they don't know what's going to happen, what if they're going to go back, if they're going to have to just become Spanish somehow. Yeah.
Well, you want to know what's also really funny? Sometimes people do like to make a mountain out of a molehill. That's a famous expression here. And when Donald Trump became the president, there were people that really thought that the United States was going to become Nazi occupied Germany. Dare I say something so bold like that? But nothing's happened. The
Yeah.
only thing that has happened is everybody just goes up in arms whenever he tweets. That's basically what's been happening these past 4 years. But what will happen with Brexit? That's always the problem. Unpredictability. It's like when a snowstorm or a hurricane is about to hit the shores. Like
Mhm.
nobody knows how severe it's going to be, and
Yeah.
nobody knows if it's going to be just an over exaggeration of something that was so easily manageable. We don't know. And that's,
Yeah.
again, human nature. We don't know because we have emotions. We think about these things with our feelings,
Mhm.
not necessarily with our brains all the time. For all people know is if Brexit happens, the greatest things could happen to the British economy. We don't know. Everything could go in
Yeah.
completely the other direction. Nobody knows. But
Yeah.
yes, it's something that's on people's minds, and it's something that people are concerned about. And yes, I feel that, honestly, both of these things go hand in hand.
Mhm.
Their stories basically began at the same time. Brexit happened literally a few months before the 2016 election, and they
Yeah.
basically have been at the forefront for the last 4 years, and they're going to be at the forefront for the next 4 years.
Yeah. The thing is, it was supposed to be this thing that happened a few months ago, and then it got pushed back, and then it got pushed back. And since the deals just keep disappearing and nothing keeps happening.
And I think one of the problems is that because of the fact that those kinds of things are the main focus, the fact that you say just because that one specific thing is in limbo, it's like everything
Mhm.
else is on hold.
Yeah.
It's the reason why there are so many people that are, with the whole impeachment process right now, the thing that makes people really angry is the fact that because they're only focusing on impeachment, nobody wants to come to the table and try to focus on other things that are very important to this country. Like, we have been waiting for our infrastructure plan, but nobody wants to move forward until they know who's leading the country. And quite frankly, I think that that's a mistake.
Yeah, we've been having that here in Spain as well. We've had to vote for a second time because they don't agree on who's going to be president. And I think we're going to have to vote a third time, which really does piss me off. Um, but yeah, no one wants to move forward. Things are paralyzed because it's like, who's doing this? Who's taking over the country? Who is pushing things forward? And since they can't seem to come to an agreement, everything is just standing still, which is terrible for everything.
Well, unfortunately, if I wanted to think in extremes, I would basically try and get a crowd of people and say, listen, you are not happy with who's in office, then the people don't want to waste their time anymore, because clearly you're saying that our voices don't matter. So why don't you vote?
Oh yeah, no. I've said it. If I've been told to vote a third time, I'm gonna protest. I'm not gonna vote.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not protest. That's exercising your right, because the best part about living in a free country is the fact that voting is not an obligation. Voting is a right. You have the ability to do so, but your right to vote also gives you the right not to vote.
Yeah.
Because
I think what's that's insane?
Yeah.
This is the second time that has happened. Like a few years ago, we also had to vote 3 times.
Because it's so funny that reminds me of a story about how during the 2016 elections, my best friend was in the city and in New York City, and he was walking to his job, and he bumped into a bunch of people who were Hillary Clinton supporters, and they were basically saying, hey, sir, you're going to vote? You got to vote. You got to vote. You got to vote. And he was saying, okay, I will be planning on voting. I'm actually voting for Donald Trump. He goes, oh, no, don't vote for him. So they're basically saying you have the right to vote, but don't vote for the person we don't want. That's not democracy.
It's weird. Politics, I think, is one of those things that need to shift and completely change. As the times have changed, so does that. Because that is the only thing that has become stunted and not changed in decades and in centuries.
I think that that's a good place to close it. And I will say to you, amen, sister. I appreciate those wise words of wisdom. And that wraps it up, everybody. That is the rest of the best and the worst. And like I said at the beginning of this video, people, this is all opinions. Opinions are not facts. Opinions allow people to bring facts to the table and discuss them with other people. That's what opinions are all about. But Gloria, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I could definitely tell that there were certain moments here where we agreed to disagree, and let me say, that's okay. You are always welcome to talk to me a little bit more about all these things, because of course I enjoy talking to you. You're a fantastic person, and your lights officially agreed with you because they went up. So that's great. So I appreciate the fact that you joined me today, and I'm really excited to see what you have in store on your channel in 2020, and I'm hoping that we can work again together soon.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. Thank you so much, because honestly, I love having this conversation, and the fact that it's about everything that has happened, a little bit of everything. It's really just incredible. I really enjoy this conversation. So thank you so much for thinking of me for this.
Oh, no, and thank you so much for dedicating the time to do so, because I will say it was a bit tricky for me to actually find people to do so, but I'm glad that you were able to find the time. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime, really.
All right, thanks. All right, so thank you very much for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday season. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.